90.3 WHPC now presents Law You Should Know. The law affects every aspect of our lives, our home, our jobs, and our recreational activities. Now, learn about the law and how to protect yourself against the loss of your liberty or property, and learn how to stand up for your rights and seek compensation when you have been wronged. Your host for Law You Should Know is attorney Kenneth J. Landau, a past dean of the Nassau Academy of Law, and frequently lectures to lawyers on ethics and avoiding problems with clients, and to the public on how to choose and use lawyers. This is Law You Should Know on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hi, this is Ken Landau, and welcome to Law You Should Know. Today's program is about finding passion beyond the law. We're going to give lawyers and other professionals and everyone out there why it's important to have a broad range of interest and find something you're passionate about besides your work, and how it will help you avoid stress and achieve greater happiness as a lawyer. Our special guest is Beverly Smirnis, who's taken this journey herself. She's a public relations person. She's written books and trying to find other things to pursue her passion and helping others to do so along the way. Beverly, welcome to Law You Should Know.
Thanks, Ken. It's my pleasure to be here.
Why is it so important that lawyers pursue their passion and find some passions beyond the law?
When the statistic in America says that very few people, when they look back at their lives, say they feel like they've lived their dream. I mean, it's a small percentage, under 10% of people. And I think there's things that you can do to make an intentional choice not to follow the path that most people do, which is just listening to the norm, like listening to what other people tell them that they should do it with their lives and how they should be, and choose a different path that is more daring, more risk-taking.
So if people are already lawyers and went through the rigors of law school and what it takes to be admitted a lawyer and getting a job, it may be too late for them, but you're going to help them change course a little bit. But should other questions younger people should ask before they invest the time and money to go to law school?
Yes, and first of all, I want to say that even if you have made your career out of law, it's never too late to expand, diversify, add some balance to your life. But for a young person, to answer your question, I think the important thing is this really your passion, or were you encouraged? I know a lot of, if your parents are from the golden generation like mine, their mindset is you go to college, and in the case of a law student, they're going to continue their education because they're looking for a job, and then they're going to get married after they finally graduate, and they're going to make a safe choice there among the available choices. They're going to start a family, and then all of a sudden, they're 50, 60 years old, and they're burnt out, and they're like, I hate my job. I can't stand my spouse. They're just depressed.
So how can lawyers avoid falling into that trap, or maybe young law graduates or law students avoid that trap?
Well, I think you have to decide, first of all, that this is your passion. And if it is, know what you're getting into and try to make a difference. Law, I believe, is a career that has been, it's been a long established. It's not an industry that is, it changes very often. So and it's very corporate, so that's not the right fit for everyone.
And it may not be as glamorous as it looks on TV, where everyone's happy and lawyers are successful and they win every case and they make lots of money. There are also many different fields of law. So a lawyer could be stuck in an office or researching laws all day, and maybe they're happy doing that. Others might be doing trials. Others might be, teaching or, arguing appeals. There are many different paths to take, and it's important that lawyers and law students try to find the right fit for their legal career. Should they also try to, in high school, in college, in law school, do internships, try to observe what lawyers do, find out the good and bad, and see if they can visualize themselves in some of those settings?
Yes, I think internships are super important. As a journalist, my journalism degree, I did a lot of internships for my credit hours, and that was really more important than the classroom to me in my case. And I think that's so important. There are different areas, and I think I thought for a while I might want to be an attorney. My parents said I would be a good attorney because I knew how to argue well. But I don't think that's a very good reason to choose to go into law. But I think I had a glamorized view of it, almost similar to the glamorized view I also had of ad agencies. I wanted to be like Mad Men or something. But in the case of law, maybe you watched Matlock and Perry Mason, and you saw like they actually solved murder cases in the courtroom. But that's not really a real life example. They don't really do that, so.
Well, some lawyers might, but it's not all fields and all jobs lead to that kind of satisfaction.
Right.
And it's important to explore whether you can get a job that will provide you with that satisfaction. And as you said, maybe it's a good idea to view the world as an intern and see if you can see yourself in that position 5 or 10 years down the road.
Yeah, I think that the attorneys that find the satisfaction, I have one friend that's a private attorney, so he probably wouldn't be a good fit for the real corporate, world where he had to answer to somebody else. He gets to be more independent in that field, in that term. But he is definitely at the beck and call of the private billionaire that he represents.
And if you are taking a step in the world of internships, it's probably important to ask lawyers or those in whatever field you're going into or think you're going into, do they like it? What do they like about it? What they don't like about it? And as you talked earlier, what courses are really important and helpful so you are successful down the road? It may not be what the school is telling you to take. They might give you a different perspective on that.
Right. I think a lot of attorneys are probably guilty of, like so many Americans, of their career and their title defines who they are as a person. And I think it's really important to have the life balance. You're somebody outside of the law firm. So you need to have those other interests so you don't get burnt out. And a lot of lawyers have problems with relationships. I think the legal field is a breeding ground for narcissists and megalomaniacs, and they don't necessarily make the best spouses or parents.
Well, it can be toxic, and that's one thing you want to explore before you go through all that training. Is what is it like for a lawyer? What are the relationships like day to day with your colleagues or with adversaries or with the courts or with your clients? Because it may be a situation you would not like, and you should ask those people you're connected with before you take the plunge. What is the work-life balance? And try to get ideas and making your own career choices and job choices to see if you can achieve it. And it's never too late to achieve some work-life balance.
Right.
So how would you suggest someone's immersed in their work, how can they start to segue to more of a work-life balance?
Well, I think you just have to commit to it. No one gives you permission or tells you can't. You just have to decide on it and really put it to practice and really identify that. What if you weren't a lawyer tomorrow? Like, what if you got fired or, something happened? You're still a person with value and worth. So I think we as Americans, the first thing people ask you is what do you do? Well, your answer shouldn't always be your career title.
And maybe part of it, if you're so inclined, is that you help people. Maybe you do it as a lawyer. Maybe you do it as a volunteer for a charity. Maybe you do it in an educational setting to help a group or certain populations in ways related to the law or not. And maybe that helps give you, greater satisfaction.
Yeah, I know, another attorney that I know, like he invested in, he has a passion for food and wine. So he invested in restaurants and he as a partner, he donated, I think, some of the legal work that the restaurants needed and, for shares and interest in the company. And that just kept him diversified and interested in something beyond the everyday, day-to-day stuff.
Why do you think sometimes people, let's say especially lawyers, end up in an isolated setting?
Well, I think there's a lot of research, paperwork. There's just a lot of detail that goes into preparing for a law case, representing a law case, responding to the legal process. And so, yeah, I think it can get very, that part of it, I'm sure, is not, I doubt anyone gets into law for that part of it, but that's a lot of it, isn't it?
A lot of it is research, and some lawyers enjoy that. Some like, being in the court. Some like meeting with clients. Some like writing. There's all different skill sets involved in different fields of law, and that's important for a lawyer who doesn't like being, researching all day, can segue and do something else or change the mix of work they're doing, maybe in their office, maybe by changing jobs, maybe by working in a different setting or related industry.
I work with a construction attorney. I've worked with one firm, and the fellow who used to do my construction articles and in instruction, education classes and stuff, he got burnt out and left, and now he started a trampoline company. So, I'm sure his, all the legalities and liabilities with that business keep him busy, but he's become a franchisee now, and he seems to be very happy. He looks totally different. He doesn't wear suits, and he has a long beard now. So he totally did an about face.
And
but he's still on some way,
And there are lawyers who've become musicians, who've started ice cream stores, something else that maybe used a little bit of their business expertise, but they like that type of environment better than the law.
Sure.
You talk about the concept of off the rails, and maybe you can explain a little bit more. First of all, I just want to remind our listeners that we're talking with Beverly Smirnis, and she's went from public relations to try to expand her world, and she's trying to offer ideas on how lawyers can do the same. And you're listening to Law You Should Know here on 90.3 WHPC, and our podcast of this shows and many other programs of Law You Should Know are available at nccradio.org, and we're coming to you on WHPC 90.3, the voice of Nassau Community College. Tell us about some of the other ways that you've looked beyond your field and attorneys can live off the rails.
Just to clarify, so I started out in public relations. Much like law, there's lots of, just about any business that you go into, you can use that public relations background. We're all in the business of promoting ourselves. But I evolved into print media in a really big way, and it was specialized niche print media. But as we know, that industry is evolving and changing, and I, my husband and I actually work together, so we could talk a lot about that relationship building and that balance of life for sure. We've worked together. We've been married over 30 years and worked together the whole time. So, but in the same token, we've seen these magazine publishing companies go under different ownership, and we went from making about $30,000 a month to zero with one that sold and sold to bad people that didn't know what they were doing. And they ran it all into the ground, but in the process, they hurt a lot of other people besides themselves. But we just had to start over, and we're glad we did. So we're a lot more intent on diversifying as we went forward. We did work for another company, and I just recently gave that up last year, 2/3 of my income producing activity because I don't want to get too far down that print media road. It's time for change. And so I made the personal decision to stop that and really start promoting my books, my writing, really be 100% writer and not having to wear all these other hats it takes to put together magazines every month. So.
And maybe lawyers also have become writers as they pursue other things. I mean, you have certain skills as a lawyer, and the world is changing for lawyers as well, and AI is going to change that world even further. So, and some lawyers may find that one field dries up or you're not that interested in it. And so it's important to be open to new ideas, to diversify, and perhaps even to go into a totally different field if it will bring you more satisfaction. You also mentioned public relations. I mean, there are lawyers who've switched to the PR role in a law firm because it's something they enjoy more. Their legal background helps them. And so it's a win-win situation for the firm and for themselves. They have the background in the daily practice of law, but they enjoy more the PR aspects of it. Tell us where about your website and where our listeners can find it and what information on the website may be helpful to them.
Yeah, so it's thesavvylist.com. So and then S-A Victor Y, SavvyList, LIST.com. So thesavvylist.com. And it houses, all of the stories that we tell. There's definitely a flair there for, the best of the best. We've got, people pursuing passions tend to, live life to the fullest. They're looking for the best of the best. Also there, you'll find ways that you can subscribe to our podcasts on the various platforms as well. And so a little bit of, really try to create a site that houses everything. And I tell stories, both in my journalistic real life interviews with people and also through the characters that I've created some of those characters are based on true life people, but they're also fictionalized. With historic fiction is my favorite genre for writing. And so there's several projects there. And we illustrate the same concept of living off the rails, like living life to the max, like not following the normal course where you're just supposed to, have some kind of a corporate job and stick it out. And even though you're miserable and you have no life work balance and and then, at 60 something years old, you're supposed to start growing old and, not pursuing passion anymore. So we try to say, illustrate what you should do instead, the opposite.
And the same thing may be true of law and lawyers, that if you're not happy in your current environment, maybe you can switch to a different field, a different size firm. Maybe you can add a different mix to the work that you do. Maybe you can add volunteer work or part-time work that will be something you enjoy, and it will help balance out the stuff you don't enjoy as much.
Yeah, back to your question earlier about a young law student. I mean, if I was a young law student, I would aspire to create a off-the-rails type of law agency that really nurtured people in their interest. You hear about firms that have exercise programs and they do team building things and things like that. I don't know why you couldn't do that with a law firm. So my goal would be to have my own law firm and show people, hey, we don't have to be some straight-laced corporate environment here.
Right. Many lawyers and law firms are paying more attention to the work-life balance, trying to prevent burnout among their attorneys, trying to help make their situations a little better, being concerned about quality of life, trying to put a different mix of activities, including charity, including fun activities. But not all lawyers have turned the corner on that. But it's important that for lawyers young and old to try to put that into the life of a law firm or their law department, because that's going to make people happier for the long run.
I think the COVID pandemic actually opened the eyes to some people about, hey, maybe we could work this way, or even the fact that, hey, things are shut down. I'm an attorney, and I've never had to be a full-time spouse and parent, or so people. I think there were some positive things that came out of it.
Well, I think many lawyers enjoyed working from home and traveling to the office less. I mean, right now in the field, there's a lot of controversy, and some law firms do want people to return to the office more often than some of the attorneys would like to. And those have to be discussed to try to achieve that work-life balance, and some balance that works for the individual attorney and for the firm. And the more flexible the firm is, probably the happier the attorney will be.
I would think so.
What are some other considerations in achieving that work-life balance?
Well, I just think you've got to, again, with everything that you do, you've got to follow your own heart and your own passion. And I think, like when I was growing up, that might have been perceived as defiant, but I'm glad that I was defiant. Even though I showed creative propensity at a very young age, my father said, well, you should be a CPA. That would have been so outside of my realm. I can't imagine that anyone that knows me would ever visualize me as a CPA. And then, just things like, when I met, I went on a vacation to Mexico and met the Greek Canadian that I'm still married to 30 years later. And everyone tried to say, well, that's not convenient. That's not, you have differences. You're from different countries. You have different religious backgrounds. And I would say, who cares? Your heart. Don't listen to that. In fact, we're the only ones that did stay married out of all of our siblings, who were the ones with all the great advice back then, so.
And I just want to remind our listeners, we're talking with Beverly Smirnis, and she's an expert at finding a passion beyond the law, and that's our topic today. She went from public relations into fields that may be thriving now and give her joy. And we're talking about how lawyers and other professionals can try to achieve that. And it's important, as your journey in your legal or your business career, to put things into the mix that will keep you going, that will prevent burnout, and that will give you joy. Are these things you should bring up to your boss, bring up to your colleagues? Can we have a social event one night a month, or, maybe, a little firm activity that's doing charity or supporting a charity, something beyond the traditional legal work? Absolutely.
I think we have to try to lighten up a little bit in life. We tend to take things, so seriously. And I think that's a mistake in any field of work, to always, be serious and not laugh. And it's not going to work in a relationship either. To me, like humor, having fun, being able to cut up and tease each other and flirt with each other and all those things, it's so important. And you should never settle for anything less.
Right. We might have to be a little careful about the flirting in a legal setting or business setting, because sometimes
I was talking about the personal, but maybe not in the professional. Yeah,
it could be taken the wrong way. So if you want to change your workday and the balance, even if the company won't do it, you can get together with a group of friends and, invite them to do something after work or on a lunch hour that will help bring you greater satisfaction than doing legal work all day.
Absolutely.
And how can someone broach the topic with their colleagues or with their bosses?
I would just say, just talk about it. Be willing to communicate.
And you could also mention that it might be good for the firm. It might be good public relations. It might make people more productive if they have a time out. Show other companies that are doing it, other law firms that are doing it, how they're getting good press and good vibes for it.
Yeah, I mean, if a firm has a website that, maybe they could put up a little blog on it that, the life of attorney Joe Blow outside of, outside the firm doors,
Well, it also may be good if they're collecting food, they're
Yes.
participating in a charity event, they're helping someone who had some, horrific disaster or circumstance. It looks good for the firm, and it may be meaningful to the people as well at the firm who participated in that.
Absolutely.
Beverly, give us your website again where lawyers and others can learn more about the benefits of finding passion beyond the law.
thesavvylist.com.
And what information is on there again?
You'll be able to go there and sign up for our newsletter, and also to find links to the various platforms that our People Pursuing Passions podcasts will be on. And I would love to tell your story. If you're an attorney who's found a way to introduce that to your firm, or rekindle your relationship at home, or start over in your career using your law background and channeling it in a different direction, I would love to know your story, because I'm always looking for the next one.
And your story, which you may enjoy telling or sharing, may help other people to make a change for the better.
Absolutely.
And just give us your website one more time, Beverly.
thesavvylist.com, and savvy is SAVVY. Savvy, by the way, means in the know. So we try to keep you in the know with ideas of, about living a life of passion, resources for you as well. You'll find there if you if your passion is food or wine or travel or philanthropy, whatever it may be, we'll give you some resources there. So.
And it's important for other hardworking, well-educated professions to be savvy as well.
Exactly.
And probably that will endear them to their clients if they take an interest in the savvy work that their clients are doing and help create a bond and help give them a life beyond the law as well.
Absolutely.
And this is something they can bond with their clients, with their coworkers, with others in the community as well.
Yes, yes.
And very briefly, what are your final thoughts to attorneys and business people and why this is good for them?
Just live your life on your own terms. Like, no one knows you better than you. Love yourself and be bold, and don't be afraid to express yourself and go for the gusto and live life to the fullest. Take risks. And
it's better to speak out and see what happens. And if it doesn't work at one time with one person, speak out at a different time to another person, maybe with a different idea.
Yeah, and if you can't, if it doesn't fit, if you can't find it all within your work environment, when you have the life balance, you're gonna find ways to introduce some of these concepts outside of work.
And you can find them outside of work.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to thank our guest and for talking about Find a Passion Beyond the Law and Beyond Your Work. You're listening to Law You Should Know on 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College in Garden City, New York. If you missed any part of this podcast, you want to tell someone else about it, just go to nccradio.org. And please join us next week at the same time on 90.3 WHPC for another program on the law.